Here's 7 signs that you had to grow up way too quick. Number one, your parents had a heavy amount of personal trauma and you know all about it. Now, because we come from a culture where there's been a lot of intergenerational trauma, and most of our families immigrated here at very young ages with little support, experienced a culture shock, didn't have much educational background to attain secure, supportive job environments. They had to have a lot of hardships and struggles. And they most likely didn't really shield you from that fact. So often you become the emotional container for all the things your parents have been through. Not only were their young adult lives plagued with a lot of nuances and traumas, but usually their childhoods had a lot of things that they had grievances about as well. Tendency for our South Asian parents to hyper attach to their offsprings because it's the first time they feel real, true closeness in a relationship. And they can start to blur the lines in terms of boundaries of what is appropriate to share with their child. So a kid can become overexposed to a lot of adult topics that they don't have the brain wiring to really truly comprehend and to be able to process and cope with. So their nervous system becomes riddled with an excessive amount of stress because they're noticing that their parents are stressed out, their parents are having the conversations right in front of them, if not with them, and these grown up big world problems start to feel like they're their responsibility to cope and navigate and help support their parent through. Maybe your parent told you all about the things that their husband had done, that your father had done to them, and they kind of are looking for allyship and emotional support from you because heaven forbid they go see a mental health practitioner. That's a big no no. But emotional trauma dumping on their child, very normalized. Because of technological challenges or not having the language, they required you to go into the bank and explain what they needed done or to do all their tech work on the computer. Maybe you were feeling overwhelmed and like you weren't even competent in a lot of the asks that they had, but they just kind of expected you to be able to have the competency and the emotional bandwidth to deal with all the tasks. So there's the second sign that you had to grow up too quick. You have become very well adept at wearing different hats, switching between different personas. Basically, you know how to be the mediator, you know how to be the tech person, you know how to be the financial advisor, you know how to be the family manager. You have gained all these life skills, and maybe they serve a purpose for you in adulthood now, but you're pretty burnt out from having to do them at way too young of an age. Number three is pretty intensely damaging. It's the fact that because there was so many big problems going on around you growing up, there was no room for you to have any. So what did that result in? That resulted in becoming a people pleaser, an emotional container where you just repressed your own feelings. Maybe you've become hyper independent. You don't ask for help or show vulnerability because that just isn't the way that you've learned to define yourself or view yourself. There was never any room for your problems or emotions because your parents' problems and emotions were taking up so much space. Next up, number four, adult relationships became your relationships. What I mean by that is way too many times in client sessions with my Punjabi families, my South Asian families, I hear all about when the client was a child, they knew all about the nuanced dynamics between their mom and the mom's sister-in-law, meaning your bua or your chachi. They knew all about how their dad had been betrayed by his own brother. All these overexposures to adult relationships are not something a child needs to be plagued with. So you have now adopted your parents' feelings towards your extended family members, and you never got the chance to develop your own attachment or rapport with that family member, or maybe just get to have the innocence of childhood to stay naive to all that kind of stuff. Because when you see betrayal, dishonesty, and backbiting and conflict at an early age, it makes you have a very guarded and distrusting worldview. So now your foundation and the way you're stepping out into your relationships is with that filter in your mind of be careful. The people closest to you can stab you in the back. So this is another thing that we see a lot in our family systems. Next up, number 5, close relationships stress you out, so you prefer to just keep to yourself. You have a little bit of an avoidant attachment style where you have your wall up because you have learned that getting close with someone and sharing anything with them or having them share anything with you escalates really quickly. And you're already burnt out from playing that role in childhood, so it's really hard for you to securely attach with romantic partners, your own kids, your friends, have healthy dynamics at work, because those original blueprint relationships showed you that being close to people results in feeling poorly after. You do everything with a sense of urgency. This is another telltale sign that you had to grow up too quick. Because your brain was not at the developmental age to be enduring all that stress, it kind of hyper aroused your nervous system, and now it feels like there's a danger or threat around when there isn't. There was always a fire to put out, there was always a conflict to resolve, there was always someone else's feelings to manage and try to appease. So now you have this sense of urgency. Maybe you're always rushing, maybe you're feeling like you can't keep up with life's tasks. Maybe when things settle, you end up self-sabotaging and putting on more to your plate because that's what's normalized to you. That's what seems like life is supposed to be like. Here's another common one that comes up in sessions. When you finally get that glimpse of what quote unquote normal families are supposed to be like, normal parent child dynamics are supposed to be like, you feel resentful. You feel like you have missed out on something, like things have been robbed from you, and that your childhood was so different that it makes you feel othered, and you have a tough time relating to your friends who maybe grew up differently, and you feel like they had some sort of privilege that you didn't get to enjoy, just being a child and just being stress free and doing kid things rather than doing adult things. Like I mentioned, what does this do to the brain? It makes you acclimated to have chaos because that's what you're used to. So you'll create that chaos because we're creatures of habit and we will repeat what we don't repair. It'll make you overly tolerant for big emotions. So often we can end up in toxic or unhealthy abusive relationships going forward. It'll make you not be very assertive or have good boundaries because you're used to just people pleasing in order to create safety, and that's how you identify and view yourself. You're also probably successful and self sufficient and hyper independent, but to an extreme, to the point of where you're susceptible to regular burnout, or you have a sense of something missing, or just a general unhappiness. There's a lot of ways everything I just described impacts our brain, and then our personality, and then our behaviors. What do we do to heal? What do we do with all of this information? We stop wearing our overcompetence like a badge of honor. We stop thinking it's a good thing to be self sacrificing and selfless, as much as it's reinforced in our extended family systems, in law family systems. Especially for women who are ever giving and ever loving as employees, as mothers, as sisters, as wives, as daughters. It's important to kind of take a step back from the roles that we've embraced and try to remember that there's another important role, which is the one you play for yourself. How do you take care of yourself? Put yourself on that roster of people that you're always taking care of. Counseling therapy is a great starting point. It's a great way to kind of see what the underpinnings are. How is your past informing the present? As I've been making a few videos about, there's also a really helpful modality called EMDR to kind of process and sort out those kind of deeply embedded traumatic memories that might be keeping some patterns going that you don't exactly want to continue for the rest of your life. So definitely reach out. I know it can be daunting and scary because you don't know what to expect when you first sit down with a mental health practitioner, but it's always a good idea to just have a little consultation, see what it's all about, and get the ball rolling. As usual, thank you guys for watching and listening. If you guys found this video helpful, please remember to like, follow, and comment. See you next time.